And big day for India. US President Donald Trump will be arriving in just few hours from now. And right from the moment US announced Donald Trump's visit to India, one aspect has dominated discourse in both countries. Well, that is of a trade deal. Trade will remain high on the agenda during discussions. Despite robust diplomatic ties, India and US have quibbled over the years and across administrations. Well, trade negotiations between both countries are broadly affected by two factors. First, the China factor, that is to accommodate $18 billion trade surplus that US envoys. India has increased buying crude oil and civilian aircraft from US in recent times. The US and India are strategic partners because of a mutual concern over China factor. But India and US do not have a free trade agreement as of now. So any tariff cut by India to allow greater imports from US needs to be done in a non-discriminatory manner as per WTO rules. However, with over $50 billion trade deficit with China, India is obviously not keen on increasing imports from its northern neighbor. Similarly, if India, for instance, cuts duty on high-powered, fully built motorcycles like Harley-Davidson, it may actually benefit similar other brands such as UK's Triumph, Japanese Yamaha, and German-Italian Ducati. And the second factor is India's trade conservationism following the long-stretched regional comprehensive economic partnership negotiations that India exited at the moment. Not only does India now flex its muscles with similar trade partners like Malaysia by putting restrictions on palm oil, it has also increased tariffs on a host of products like toys and furniture, calling them non-essential items. Now, after the recent budget was declared, India has put a health cess on import of medical devices amid talks between India and the US to find a middle ground, further signaling that India is in no mood to give a walkover on the proposed trade deal with the US. The future of India-US trade ties will depend now on how considerate US remains towards India's development concerns and flexibility that India can show within its self-imposed red lines. And to talk more on this, we are joined by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, live from New Delhi. A very good morning to you, Siddhant. First of all, I would like to ask you, considering Trump, and he is a businessman, he was a businessman for most part of his life, and this time there was a flip-flop over trade deal. What information are you gathering over? Will there be any trade talks at all or not between India and US?
Well, let me start with the fact that here in India, US President Donald Trump has business interest. So that is why the focus is on that as well by especially the American media. But in few hours' time, US President Donald Trump arrives here in India for a historic 36-hour visit along with the first family. And there are many firsts to this visit, given the fact that this is for the first time a standalone visit of the US President is taking place to India. But talking about the business aspect to it, because there is a substantial business aspect to the entire visit. Trade is something that is being talked about. It is one of those thorny issues US President Donald Trump has raised publicly. He has even called India as the tariff king. So will there be a deal or not? Well, government sources are telling WION that there is no rush from the Indian side to have a deal on the eve of the visit. And we also know that US President Donald Trump has also commented on a trade deal. He in fact has said that India hasn't been treating US in a very nice manner, but he also said that that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a good friend of United States. So what is expected on the trade front is an MOU on the trade facilitation. This is something that is expected. Both the Indian side and the American side are negotiating on the MOUs. We also know the Commerce Secretary will be also present during the American Commerce Secretary will be present in this visit, and that is why trade facilitation is something that will be on the top of the priority list when it comes to trade. But we have seen that how India has been importing more and more energy, more and more equipments from United States to reduce trade deficit, because that is the other concern of the United States, the trade deficit between the Indian side and the American side, and that is why this energy remains an important component of the entire trade basket.
Right. And Siddhant, we are talking on a day when US has surpassed China to become India's largest trade partner. Will it be correct to say that on trade deal, the ball is in now US court?
Well, it is depending on the negotiators of both in New Delhi and Washington. Well, of course, everyone has their own set of leverages. India has its own set of leverages. It has a huge market in which the American side would like to have its own presence. This is one of the contentious issues between the negotiators, because the American side is keen that India open certain sectors, and the Indian side is not very keen that some sectors should be opened, and that is the most contentious issues. But talking about if United States has more leverage, it won't be right to say that, because we know that both sides has its own strengths and weaknesses, but by and large both sides are on the same chapter, same page and the same line when it comes to having a trade deal. In fact, both sides are now hoping for a larger FTA, which could be expected very soon, in a few months from now. In fact, the US President, before his visit, talked about how the American side is working towards a larger trade deal between now, that is the visit of the US President Donald Trump, till the elections are announced in United States. So that remains something of a priority list, especially for US President Donald Trump. He has managed to have trade deals with Canada and Mexico. There is a trade deal which is being negotiated with China, and India remains a major partner for United States. Of course, trade is a contentious issue, but remember, both are strategic partners. Both are countries which have growing convergences from counter-terrorism to security. And even though there are issues when it comes to trade, both sides are willing to sit down and work together for a larger good.
One last question before I let you go, Siddhant, that coronavirus is now becoming a bigger threat to global trade and economy, as big as global trade wars. Do you think that talk can also take place between President Trump and PM Modi of India?
Well, this is a part of the entire conversations which are going to happen between US President Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There is, of course, no confirmation as to specifically if they're going to discuss how the Wuhan virus is a cause of concern to the global economy. But this is expected to be part of the larger conversation, larger narrative by both sides. We know that India, a few weeks from now, hosted a meeting. The Indian Finance Minister hosted a meeting of the trade groups here in Delhi about their concerns regarding the coronavirus. We know trade with China is bound to be impacted. India-China trade relation is something that is another story for another day. But large trading partners, both of the countries are large trading partners of each other, and Wuhan virus is bound to create problems for both the countries. In fact, even as we speak, we know that India and China are having tiff over the plane India wanted to send to Wuhan to evacuate its citizens from the city, which is the epicenter of the virus, and also send relief. But of course, China is not giving any kind of clearances. But during those tiff which happened in last 2 days, we know the releases from the Chinese embassy here in India and the Indian External Affairs Ministry, there were conversations about how India has put trade restrictions. The Chinese side said that India needs to make sure that these restrictions are removed. But the Indian side has said that these restrictions are important, because if these restrictions are not put in place, the virus could spread to India, and India is doing its own responsibility. So that remains another contentious issue for India and China. But if we talk about US and India, Wuhan virus is something that is a cause of concern for both New Delhi and Washington.
Right, Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us this morning and bringing all the details as far as trade is concerned on this important bilateral visit by President Trump that is going to start today.